Welcome to the CX Files. I'm Peter Ryan. The growth of cloud and CX has been nothing less than swift in recent years, and the extent to which customer experience managers are prioritizing this technology should not be underestimated. But even with the ongoing development of cloud solutions in the CX environment, there's still a lot of uncertainty in terms of how this technology can benefit contact center operations of all sizes. To get some clarity on this topic, the CX File speaks with Mark Trimble of Powerland, who is based in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. During our chat, Mark outlines the ongoing upward trajectory of cloud, what CX providers should be looking for in a cloud technology partner, and how cloud can benefit rapidly expanding CX operations. Mark Trimble of Powerland, thanks very much for taking some time to join us on the CX Files today.
Thanks for having me, Peter. Glad to be here.
Well, it's really topical that we're catching up with you about something that is on, I'd say, the tip of the tongue of most of the individuals involved in the CX or contact center space, and that's cloud solutions, the ability to leverage cloud as part of the business model. Probably a good point of departure for us, our discussion today is, in your opinion, Mark, based on what you're seeing with your clients, why is cloud so important in the current business climate?
We're seeing a real surge the last, I'd say, 8 or 10 years in cloud, and it's gone up and it's gone down, and we're sort of finding that equilibrium point right now. But I think what's driving it is that desire to have, the scale, be able to scale up quickly, not knowing what you're getting into. It's hard to buy infrastructure. If you've got a multi-year plan, you don't want to buy it the first year and have to rebuy the second year because you don't have enough. Also, you don't want to buy too much. Agility is also very important. Customers are finding that if they want to be competitive in the market, they need to be able to react quickly to their, what their customers are looking for. And if they need to shift directions quickly, that's much easier to do in cloud. I think, when you're seeing it go up and down with cloud, what you're seeing is a balancing of where the application is best placed. And some people have, put applications up into the cloud and found that it's not for everything. So there's been some repatriation, but everybody's using multi-cloud right now. It's just something you can't get away from. There, so many applications that you wouldn't even think of putting in your own data center anymore.
So really, it's that agility that we're talking about, that flexibility that is driving the interest, especially amongst the contact center community, would you say?
Yeah, and I think it's across any sector, really. It's so many customers that I run into, they've got these legacy infrastructures, and they cannot move quickly to save their lives. So if you're a new startup or a leading company in industry, especially CX, where you have to move very quickly to serve customers in any part of the world, you need to be able to be agile. You need to be able to spin up instances close to where your partners are, close to where your customers are, and you need to have that adjacency to give that. Because if you've got latency in anything you do, that's your first big X for customer experience.
That makes a lot of sense. So thinking about that element about a cloud solution in the CX space, if I'm a CX operator, what should I be thinking about when I'm looking to source a cloud solutions partner? What would be some of the key facets that would really ring a bell in regards to a company that I should be looking to work with versus one that I might want to put on the side?
Yeah, I think I'd gravitate towards a partner that is, focused on a hybrid model. You're going to have clients that are, or you're going to have partners that are aligned very closely with one company or another, and that doesn't always yield the best results. So you want to be able to have your data where it needs to be, when it needs to be there. What we're seeing with a lot of customers is a hybrid model where they have multi-cloud implementations. They're doing a lot more edge computing, so things are not all up in the cloud. You want to be able to do some compute at the edge where the action is happening, close to your customers, and that way you're not dumping all of your data back up into AWS or Azure or Google Public Cloud, because that's where you're going to save money. If you can moderate what you're dumping up into the cloud, you're going to be further ahead on your expenses in that respect. As far as a partner, I would, we don't have a ton of experience with these sorts of clients at Powerland, but we do have customers that are using multi-cloud. They do have their own data centers. We partner with companies like Equinix, for example, worldwide data center business that has that cloud adjacency. So you can put your workloads in an Equinix data center and have it right next to the pipe that the on-ramp to the internet. So you can be the lowest latency possible for all the major cloud providers, and you get the benefit of being in the same space as your customers and your partners. And really, that's where the magic happens. But when you're looking to Azure, AWS, Google Public Cloud, the big benefits for a lot of customers are they've got an almost unlimited supply of APIs and applications that they can plug into. One of my coworkers has done a little bit of work with Twilio, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with Twilio or not, but great tool. You can run it at the edge and then have all your database and a bunch of other services up in whatever cloud you choose. But being able to have those instances worldwide, wherever your people are, really improves performance and reduces latency. You can manage costs properly by having the data at the right place at the right time.
So really what we're talking about here is, as we said before, a degree of flexibility, a degree of agility, but equally speaking, I would say the ability to act very, very fast when you need to, having that information at your fingertips that you can pull off really at the snap of the thumb. And Mark, you raised something too that I think is important, and that's cost management. Are you seeing cost management as a big driver, especially as we're seeing a migration away from the premise-based operations into the cloud? Is cost one of the big reasons why operators are looking to try and look to see what they can leverage from a cloud perspective?
Cost isn't a primary driver for cloud. It's I've had several people, especially recently, say when they price out moving an application to the cloud, cost is not one of the reasons. I had one guy say the other day that he could buy new infrastructure every year for 5 years for what it's going to cost him to put his application in the cloud. But they're still moving part of that application to the cloud because of that agility and scalability. So it's really that the ease at which they can spin things up and spin them down to the cloud. If a customer has surge in demand seasonally or at the beginning of the month, end of the month, middle of the month, they're also going to benefit because you're only paying for what you consume. And that's if there is going to be a cost savings, that's the type of customer that's going to be able to take advantage of it. The alternative in the old days was you would buy a big data center full of expensive gear, and some days you'd run it at 10%, some days you run it at 80%. But you paid the same no matter what you purchased. So if there is a cost savings, those are the types of businesses that are going to be able to take better advantage of it.
So, Mark, I deal with a lot of clients in the CX space, or a lot of organizations providing CX services. Now, I think obviously some of the larger players out there, some of the global players will have a good idea about what cloud can do for them. They're probably using a lot of cloud right now within the scope of their own operations. I would dare say they would form the bulk of it. But equally speaking, where I find an interesting sweet spot is in some of the smaller to medium-sized CX players. Now,
I think a lot of them are uncertain about how to migrate into a cloud environment, given the fact that they don't have perhaps a global scale. They might be local or regional organizations. What would your counsel be to some of these rapidly growing firms that might not necessarily be worldwide players yet, but are perhaps operating at a smaller, more regional niche level, but that want to take cloud on and make that the basis for how they handle their infrastructure?
Right, and I don't think if you were starting a company today, you'd start it any other way. That going with the cloud gives you that global reach, even if you are just starting out local, even if your customers aren't far away. It gives you that ability to flex out. It also allows you to understand your costs as you grow. So you can figure out when you're quoting out for new customers, what's it going to cost me to support this new customer? It's very simple to figure out. You can get it down to the user, down to the project. So it's very easy to make sure that you can remain profitable. The other thing is that you're not committing to large purchases up front, which gives you money to spend in other areas. So you can focus on building your business rather than, man, I just had to buy a whole bunch of infrastructure, and now we can't expand into that next building because we don't have the cash to do it, even though we want to grow. You don't get that anchor on your neck. But again, it comes back to as their business morphs and grows to serve different customers and their needs. You're not going to beat the flexibility that you get with the APIs available and the applications available on a menu-based instance in the cloud. You can spin up in any direction and take advantage of open source tools that are ready to go, and there are thousands and thousands of customers using them already. So they're proven to be effective as well. So it's becoming the lower risk option for many customers and many companies.
Okay, so really what we're saying then is that it doesn't matter if you're a large global provider or if you're a recent upstart, cloud should really be the basis of what you're looking to do when it comes to managing your infrastructure.
Right, and I think what we're seeing with a lot of the smaller companies when they start up is when you build your web presence and you build up your customer-facing infrastructure, you're not building it to say, "Hey, I'm a small business." You want to build it so they can't tell how big you are, and that allows you to scale and grow in any form, any direction. So I think that cloud gives you that ability. It doesn't tie you down to one place or one area or one stream of business. So it's a great enabler.
So, Mark, final question as we finish up this chat, and thank you. It's been really, really enlightening. One of the big issues, if not the biggest pain points within the customer experience management industry, is information security and data protection. Can you just speak to why cloud brings that heightened level of information security to the table versus the premise-based hosting that we've seen used in the past?
Yeah, I think one of the things we're seeing is when customers are getting hit, and it's hard to find a customer that hasn't been breached in the last couple of years. The things that they're able to recover the fastest are their software as a service-based cloud hosted offerings. So your Microsoft Office 365s or your CRMs, Salesforce and ERPs with SAP. Any of these cloud-based resources are they're well protected. You've got top-level security. It's with all these types of services, and those are the ones that come back the fastest if they are hit. Now, being in the cloud doesn't guarantee that you're not going to get breached, because social engineering is a problem. Phishing attacks can sometimes reveal credentials that can allow people to get in and corrupt and encrypt and those sort of things. But generally speaking, best practices being followed in the cloud from IT security standpoint are going to be stronger than what most organizations will have in place. They come by default in most cases, whereas in an organization starting up, they may choose to invest in one area or another over security. and it leaves them exposed. There's no customer out there that I've talked to the last several years who feels like they've had enough budget allocated to protect their local resources. They just can't. No organization can do it. You can't do it. In fact, people are taking different approaches. They're saying, well, okay, well, we know we're going to get breached. Do we have an incident response plan in place? Do we have people standing by to are better protected and in general easier to recover. So it does improve your security stance.
Mark Trimble from Powerland in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure chatting with you about cloud. I've frankly learned quite a lot over the course of our discussion, and the CX Files thanks you for your time and your insight.
Thank you, Peter. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for downloading the CX Files podcast. If you have a moment, please give us a star rating or review on your favourite podcast provider, because this really helps other people to find the podcast. If you have any suggestions for future guests, or ideas, people or topics, then please just find myself, Mark Hillary, or Peter Ryan on LinkedIn and send a suggestion.